Good evening. It is 5 p.m. and I am going to call this work session to order. I'm going to call upon Deputy Superintendent Dr. Wade Behringer for introductions and to discuss what we're going to talk about tonight.
Great. Thank you, President Benno. We've got a great opportunity this evening. We've done this in the past. The last couple of years, we hadn't been as intentional as we wanted to be. And so we made sure that we wanted to get on the board's calendar for work sessions this year, specifically around our capital projects and capital planning work. So we've got two work sessions this year, one this evening and then another one in the spring. So tonight, our Assistant Director of Capital Planning, Brett Scribner, will be taking us through a PowerPoint presentation, giving you guys some updates on things, sharing some information around both the bond and the levy projects. He'll talk to you through the documents that you have in front of you as well, and just to give you an opportunity to ask questions that you may have for him as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brett, our Assistant Director of Capital Planning.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Behringer. President Benno, members of the board, Dr. Behringer, Ms. Curry. As I was introduced, my name is Brett Scribner. I'm the Assistant Director of Capital Projects. I work with the State Advisory, I'm sure you all know. And I appreciate the opportunity this evening to give the board and our community an update on our two capital measures currently in place and active. On screen, Ms. Curry will go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll start off the presentation showing the current facilities and their age, as well as the lifespan being improved and extended due to upkeep, maintenance, environmental services, and basic care from our students, staff, and community. A high-level review of the 2016 bond showing projects completed and projects remaining. A high-level review of the capital projects levy and an approach with an approach to prioritize initiatives to reduce emergency needs when equipment or products fail. Our current 2023 capital and tech levy coming up here in November, on November 7th. And for questions, I kindly ask that the board take notes and we will address them after the presentation. So we continue to monitor the district's facility conditions by original build dates along with major projects that are either planned or completed to extend the lifespan of each building. This way, we can continue to use the building without having to have it fully replaced. Each time a capital improvement is made to enhance our facilities, those lifespans are slightly increased. There will come a time, however, where the value to replace a building will outweigh the value to continue to maintain it. And when I say that, I don't mean to continue to fix things along the way, but as far as pouring large capital dollars to improve the facility, there's certainly some decisions to make in between those crossroads. For the 2016 bond recap, we have the original bond for $252 million, which included 102 projects. 3 of those being district-wide projects, which included abatement of exposed asbestos on all boilers, pipes, valves, and fittings, replacement of wood dumpster platforms with aluminum platforms and ramps, and smartboard replacements with Promethean panels and TopCat omnidirectional sound systems. We had 1 replacement elementary school, which was Covington Elementary. 1 new elementary school to be built, which was River Ridge. And we took the original listed 20 classrooms and we're actually able to build and complete the Kent Laboratory Academy. And capital planning has a list of all bond projects with anticipated completion dates for all projects in progress and not started. For the new schools, this slide here is a representation of the 3 major buildings that were completed. Covington Elementary was completed for the 2018-2019 school year. River Ridge was completed for the 2021-2022 school year, and Kent Laboratory Academy was also completed for the 21-22 school year. Our multi-purpose rooms have all been completed at this point. These MPRs have been an enormous source of collaborative space at these sites, not only for the school activities, but program use, meetings, presentations, and community gatherings. Our first field renovation at the high school level started out as a natural turf, which was on the bond list. Capital planning conducted a study with ratios of labor needs and water consumption for grass baseball and softball fields versus synthetic turf maintenance. The data showed lower costs yearly to maintain fields overall with synthetic by budgeting for turf replacements as needed per manufacturer's recommendations, which range between 10 to 15 years. The under drainage lasts a lot longer on a synthetic field because the organics do not build up and clog the drains underneath the fields. And when it's time to replace, you only need to focus on the synthetic layer. The synthetic turf also allows for more day-to-day use and year-round use, as you do not get rained out with the soggy grass. The KM baseball field was brought to the board and approved to be synthetic. The girls' fast pitch field was recently converted to synthetic, and we are recommending to continue to build synthetic fields going forward. Using the current remaining dollars for a complete study and survey with concepts of the high school fields, with the emphasis on the fields at Kent Ridge first, as these are currently not usable. In addition, the City of Kent would like to continue the partnership at Meridian Middle with a full multiplex sports field. And the City of Kent is also partnering with KSD at the Canyon Ridge field to help provide lighting, as well as the Kent Ridge field, which we are currently in design. And again, this would be the first field that goes into construction with the passing of the levy. And investing in these types of fields will lead to more playtime and better sports amenities and use for the students, athletics, and the community. HVAC projects, so that's heat, ventilation, and air conditioning, and controls projects. We can throw that in there as well. On the screen, you can see the table for the HVAC and controls that have been completed to the bond and what is left. Kent Ridge and Meeker both have controls upgrades, which will be following HVAC upgrades, and those projects are currently in design. And the reason we're holding off on controls is because it wouldn't make sense to put controls and replace controls as the HVAC equipment sits right now. If we replace controls and then did the HVAC project, we'd in turn have to redo the controls again. So that's why we are holding off. The HVAC has been a huge topic since the COVID pandemic, and we will continue to look for applicable solutions for tempered air in all of our schools. The HVAC upgrades are a priority for both KSD and the community, as they have made the current 2023 levy list, and we will continue to prepare to install these advanced systems in our schools. The current capital levy recap. On the screen here, you'll see the 2018 capital construction levy. And it was part of the capital and tech levy, which included $75 million, 307 projects. 206 of those projects are complete today. The majority of the projects were remaining from deferred maintenance projects that were not included on the 2016 bond measure. And there are 8 priorities of success and how it supports the district. So if we look at the 2018 levy by priority of success, looking a little more in depth, there's a breakout of the total projects for each of the priorities of success and what is complete to date for each of the current levy projects. Again, this is showing only 206 of the 307, where we do have another 34 currently in progress. And I'll add before we move to the next slide that our bonds and levies often overlap each other, and this helps us prioritize immediate needs while also finishing older projects in a sensible order. The 2023 capital and tech levy is a result of a 6-year, well, okay, so let me start over again. So the 6-year state study and survey has been completed, and reports of building conditions have been generated from that document, as well as from our facilities team's internal needs assessment. Let's see. The leadership from strategic initiatives and operations, budget and finance, and communication teams have been meeting regularly on pre-planning tasks, support, and schedule. The passing of the 2023 capital and tech levy will allow the capital projects team a renewed funding source to keep the priority level projects to be completed and provide an elevated educational experience for our students, staff, and community. And after the failed 2023 bond campaign, a community survey was conducted to find out more about what the community prioritizes when it comes to the district needs. And the feedback received, along with the improvements known to be required internally, provide us with the current list of projects for the 2023 levy. And we are wanting to remind everyone to vote by November 7th. And we appreciate your time, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. And we will open it up to answer any questions you might have.
Do you want to talk to them about these documents you put in front of them too?
Yes, so if you guys look at the, we have two documents. One is the 2016 bond project list, and the other one is the 2018 capital levy projects list. So going through these projects, it's a real high level of the project, the site, the basic scope, and its status as far as being complete, in progress, or not started. So feel free to take a look through those, this worksheet, and let me know if you have any questions.
Director Margell, or
Could you,
Vice President Margell, my bad. Yeah.
all of the above.
Yes.
On page 7, the field projects, are those under bond dollars?
The field projects on page 7.
Yep.
In the presentation?
In the presentation.
Oh, in the
Yeah.
power
Sorry.
presentation, yeah, sorry. Yes, all the field projects are through the bond.
Can you explain to me then, I'm not quite understanding why we're needing the capital levy dollars for the Kent Ridge, Kent Lake, and Kentwood synthetic fields if this is bond dollars?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So we would be using bond dollars if the 2023 April bond had passed to be able to take care of those projects, because we don't have access to those funds. The money that we put away in the bond, the initial bond, was for the KM synthetic fields.
Okay.
This money for the Kent Ridge piece that you see on here was for design only.
Okay.
There's only enough money left over in the bond projects from 2016 to do design for that. And so that's why when we're moving into the 2023 levy, because there's no bond dollars after the bond sunsets,
Okay.
If we want to continue moving forward beyond the just design for Kent Ridge as well as the other high schools, we have to use the levy dollars, which we can.
That makes sense for me. I just want to make sure that in the bond, what we said that we would do is do a design for those 3 schools. We have used that money as earmarked, and that is complete. Now to move from that design phase into production or completion.
Yeah, we're still in the design phase with Kent Ridge, and that's something that Brett is still leading, yeah.
But
With the bond dollars.
I guess I just want to make sure that our community set aside bond dollars, and what they set aside for those 3 schools was only for design. It was not ever expected that the 2016 bond would be used for completion of any of that work.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
It was not set aside to do full-on synthetic fields at Kent Ridge or Kentwood or Kent Lake.
Or even grass fields?
Grass fields, I'd have to go back and look. We deferred our grass field funding, especially at the middle schools, after we just finished our middle schools.
Yeah.
To not continue moving forward with grass fields.
Totally agree with
and
that.
to go the
Yeah.
synthetic route. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I just want to make sure, and if you wouldn't mind following up with me on this one, is that if we even put the money aside for grass fields, how much was that? What was that? What does that look like? And maybe that means that we can only do 1 school's turf fields, or like whatever that looks like. I don't, but we set aside money for a particular purpose. I just want to make sure that, yep, this is what we said we were going to do. Yep, this is what we did.
Got it.
Other questions?
One other question I had is on the levy priority of success. I see it enumerated from 1 to 8. Page 10 of the presentation. And so the priority of success, am I reading this correctly, that our first priority was to support physical activity and community, with our lowest priority, all of them important, but with improved accessibility was down at the bottom?
No, these are priorities of success. These were broken up into groups.
Okay.
They weren't necessarily one taking priority over another.
This is not in order. Right.
Okay.
The way that they were broken up, so we could organize the projects within those priority groups. They're not in
Priority order.
Okay, so all of it, I guess because my question was like, why did we finish all the projects in 7 and 8 if that was the lowest priority? But they weren't, this isn't a rank order, this is, we needed to get all these projects, they just happened to be, it could just have been easily A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's why you see, 21 and 21 on priority A being complete, where we only have half of the first listed priority.
Totally makes sense, thank you for explaining that. Thank you.
Director Clark.
Yeah, the fields at Northwood Middle School, so that was completed. Now, there had been a significant flooding issue out there. Was the attempt to raise the field, or how did you handle that runoff onto the track?
There was not an attempt to raise the field. The Northwood field was completed in 2 phases. The first phase being completed before I came on to capital projects. But I do have a little bit of background knowledge on that. The under drainage was replaced at that site to help move the water off the site. And we did notice quite a bit of water while we were in the second phase, completing the work for the baseball and softball fields, sheeting off of the impervious surface that is the back, almost like the playground, if you will, or the asphalt behind the school. And what we were noticing was when it rained really hard, a significant amount of water would sheet off of the asphalt there and run down the service road and go right onto the track. So what we did was we put a few berms in and directed that water to catch basins. Now, whether that catches all the water within a significant rain event, I am not completely sure. But I know the drain systems in our fields are working correctly.
Thank you.
Director Fair.
I just have couple of questions, maybe you can explain. On the projects of the capital projects 2016 bond, it said that 102 74 completed, something to that effect. No.
Yes.
Page
Yeah.
4.
So-
Page 4, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain, so there, the discrepancy here is about 8 projects that have not been started, right?
That is correct. And
From the 2016.
yes. And I guess I should have been clear. It was 102 original projects. There were, within the field projects, there were 3 field projects that separated out a tennis court. And when they separated the tennis courts from the field projects, they actually created, in my list, 3 separate line items. So it became 105 instead of 102.
Okay.
However, and so from an internal tracking, we consider the tennis courts done, but they're not on the original list.
Director Farah, if I could add to that as
Right, right.
well. If you're looking at the bond project schedule,
Right.
about 3/4, 5/6 of the way down, you see Camp Mountain View. We had bond projects on Camp Mountain View before we built the new River Ridge and tore down the old Camp Mountain View Academy up on the West Hill. So we had 4 projects there that we reassigned. So those 4 projects are part of those 8 missing projects, because obviously there's no need to do any work in a building that we tore down, so.
I knew there was simply answer, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to.
Sure.
Thank you, Wade. Yeah, and those were reassigned to the new building.
And if we go back to page 7, and I'm sure there's a very simple answer for this. Why do we have them on red? And instead, the grass is because it's grass fields?
You mean why?
But, I mean, can Meridian practice, I mean, why is it?
I think
The red
it was-
ones are completed.
Oh, it's
It was
completed?
red just because it's
Okay,
completed,
okay.
yes. The ones that are still in black are the fields that are still in progress.
And I just want to follow up with what you said. So we said that we put money aside for the design of grass fields on our levy bond, right? Did I understand, or
On the bond,
on the bond?
yeah.
So
The
just
original 2016 bond, there were funds set aside for design,
For
because,
design.
yeah. So we would have had to gone out for a much bigger bond to be able to cover the cost of redoing all of our high school fields and synthetics, which I think we saw part of that when we went out for the 23 bond. You know, the sheer cost of each school facility and what those cost. So we only had enough funds available, and so we wanted to start at KM. We're having an equity conversation. Started KM for synthetic fields. And then we knew that we had a little bit of funds for design. We knew that Kent Ridge was the worst off field. And so that's where we were doing, we started the design first, is at Kent Ridge. So with the idea that if we pass the bond, then we'll be able to take care of Kent Ridge and all the rest of the high schools as well. And with that not passing, moving into the levy, that hope is that when that levy passes, that it has an opportunity to then take care of all the high school fields, yeah. But the design will be done at Kent Ridge, because we've already actually been in process for several months with the design at Kent Ridge.
Nice. So that will be not grass, it will be turf.
That's correct.
And then the Mill Creek grass,
So I appreciate you bringing up Mill Creek.
Right.
And one of the conversations we've had kind of internally, Brett and Dave and myself, is as soon as we have the green light to actually build
Right.
or do something at Mill Creek that's not a grass field, the priorities will change. And that's the nice thing about the levy piece, is like, we have the levy calls out high school fields, but because Mill Creek is unusable altogether,
right,
we will look at how we can be able to leverage those dollars in that levy to take care of Mill Creek. Mill Creek will be a priority. Right now, Kent Ridge is a priority because we know we can keep moving forward on Kent Ridge.
Right.
As soon as Mill Creek becomes, as soon as all of the red tape and everything is moved around and we can move into that space,
Right.
I think we're actually in a process right now. We're working with engineers on getting some design stuff put together for that. And so when we can go, we'll be able to use the funds
Do you
at
start?
the levy.
And when
passed.
you say all the, so that's with the city and.
Yeah, and it's not so much the city. I mean, again, we've had the conversation with the city. It's just a matter of, they kind of gave us the green light of like, okay, you can go and start your design phase, which we've started, or the engineering piece, so we can get an idea of, you know, what is this gonna look like? What's it gonna cost? What are the shortcomings of that particular property? And so starting to work through that.
Okay.
But again, we can't, there's so many pieces, with that being a floodplain,
Right.
that you've got to work through all of the different pieces to get there. It is a much longer process. I think in my communications to the board, we talked about like 2025, because it'll probably literally take a year. Now, that's why we want to do all the design work, get everything ready to go. So as soon as we're ready, we're ready. It's not like, oh, well, now we need to spend another year doing design work. And no, we're doing all that right now
Right.
in anticipation
Make
that
sure
that'll become available to be able to start as soon as we can.
Yes, and I'll add too, within that design, we are looking at compensatory storage and all of the requirements that we would need to abide by to continue with the work down there.
I just want one more follow-up. You mentioned something, Brett, like Meridian Middle School becoming a
A
multi-use
multiplex, yeah.
plex with the city.
Yes, so we own Meridian Middle and the field just north of the school.
Okay.
And then the city has additional acreage and another park just north of that field. And the city is actually going out for design and build to improve that park. I think, do you know the name of that park, Wade? I think it's
That's North Meridian Park.
North Meridian Park. And so what we have is an opportunity to combine our fields in that area with their fields in that area and create one large park that the school can use during the school day and the community can use outside of the school hours, and just kind of make it a really, really great complex for all athletic activities.
Just to add to that,
Right.
Brett and I were just in a meeting on Monday
Right.
with Brian Smith, with Kent Parks and Rec,
Okay.
about our partnership with North Meridian the park
Right.
and Meridian Middle School fields.
Right.
We're also taking into consideration that 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now or whatever, whenever we go out for another bond, Meridian Middle School will be one of the, if not the first school
To
to
make
be
sure that-
be rebuilt. And so we're looking at the entire property that we own, and then how can we partner? Because anytime we can go into a partnership with city or Kent Parks and Rec, and they have funds
Yeah.
to be able to split the costs, and then we just have our agreement, which we have our agreement with them on several spaces. The same thing we're doing at Canyon Ridge. Same thing we'll be doing at Kent Ridge as well.
Right.
So if they come in and say, hey, we have got capital funds for all the lighting or for the walking trail around the entire, whatever it is, outhouses or bathrooms and things like that, then we want to make sure that we engage in that partnership so that we've got first dibs, it's our property.
Right.
And so, and then they have access to it after a certain period of time, and then obviously through the weekends. And so, we're meeting on a monthly basis now, and we're going and we're doing check-ins every month with the Parks and Rec, so we can kind of give updates on where we're at. And Brett's right, we're in these design phases and all this place. So even when we did Kent Ridge, Brett's running the design for Kent Ridge through KSD,
Okay.
but City of Kent and Parks and Rec, we're sitting right next to them through the entire conversation.
that.
So we're trying to create this facility that meets the needs of the community, all of our youth sports and programs in City of Kent, as well as all of our programs at the high school level. And so it's been a great partnership. It's working really well. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
If we can partner with the city and get that part. I just want to make sure that we're also addressing the security part, which that is a public park next to school. So that's.
Absolutely. It's right there on the top of our minds
you,
when we're
thank
thinking
you.
about this, yeah.
May I ask another question about Meridian? If we do that, does that take off our ability to be able to build the school on the other portion? Well, we have because we don't obviously want to build a beautiful new synthetic track and then rip it up to build a building on top of it.
I think Brett and his team have already assessed the property where the building currently sits, as well as the part of the property that is just to the west. So if you drive up to Meridian, on the right-hand side, Meridian's there. As you drive all the way up, if you kept going, you'd get to Meridian Park. Behind, right as you hit the corner of the property where that fence is, if you go behind the school back there versus going further north and putting the building on our current fields,
Yep.
we can stay in the same, like half of our property, just on the other part of the property. Is that correct, Brett?
Yeah, it's actually just to the south and to the east of the building where there are currently tennis courts. There's room to actually start a building pad there and then actually build without the actual school being impacted. And then, you know, there's ways to work around where we can get a facility started and then tear down the old building later and maybe do parking or you know, add something at that point.
I have a couple of questions. I made some notes as we're going through. Even on our agenda tonight, there's a resolution or something about moving funds from the bond to renovate a building that we bought for TOP. So I guess my question is like, I know that the bond is about to sunset. Like, how much money is left on the bond? When is the bond of 2016 like done?
Well, as the expression goes, the money is in the bank from the bond. There aren't any more sales. And we have our project list that we're working from, and there has been some money that was essentially moved from the bond to cover other items. However, I feel pretty confident that sticking to scope of those existing projects, that we should be able to work through and complete all of the projects in the bond.
So the goal then is how many projects are left? Like, what was that number?
There are
There's
21 in
34.
progress,
Yeah.
and there are, well, okay, so there's
27.
31. Yeah, I think it's 27.
Because it's 21 in progress according to this, and then 6 not started.
That's
And then the
correct.
goal then would be, but even the ones that are not started yet, there's note saying under scope, budget review, et cetera.
Yeah, the last date, basically what the conversation has been is that they should be complete by the end of calendar year 25. So if you look through here, you'll see that the last thing, you have a summer of 2025, you have complete 2025. So that allows us through calendar year 25.
So there's not a timeline per se, but there is a budget line, right? So like,
There is.
we have the bond until the funds are out, even if we don't finish the projects, or is the idea is we have to finish the projects because that's what was promised to voters?
Yes, yeah, we have to finish the projects.
Absolutely.
It is a promises made, promises kept, and we do our best to make sure we're getting a good product for not just the district, but the community as well.
So the goal then is by 2025, at some point, we hope that all these projects in the bond are complete.
That is correct.
And so with the levy then, I know that the agenda tonight, we're talking about, that's coming from the levy, the capital levy dollars, am I correct? I know we're not on that agenda item, but I kind of want to get a big picture for like what's going on with levy and levy funds.
Yeah, so speaking of like the white annex that
Yes.
we purchased through the process with the board.
Yeah.
Purchased the property. Obviously, we just don't purchase a property and we move right in. There had to be
Right.
some work done
Yeah.
to it. So what's coming to you tonight is the fact that $110,000 worth of work out of non-bond funds, which is not something that we need to bring to you. What we're bringing to you now is that we've always talked about levy contingency and having funds, and so doing projects for less and saving money and stuff like that. So this is now coming to you saying, hey, we got we have levy funds that can cover this cost that we paid for out of non-bond, and so that's what that is.
Got it. And so so from the 2018 levy is where those are coming from. And the levy is different, where it's similar, where there's not necessarily dedicated
Correct.
funds. If the funds are there, we have ideas, and then we get to what we can get to.
Correct.
And so, but is this document pretty fluid? Like, it's like, if we figure out something like the renovation of that new building, we can say, oh, the levy, the capital levy is meant for contingency funds to work on current buildings, et cetera. So we can say, hey, we want to, not reallocate, but we want to change the scope of our levy dollars by completing this project, which is in more need than this project.
Yeah, we have the ability to do that.
Okay.
Yes, if I can add, the levy is for anticipated needs and also current needs. So we have a look ahead, and we know what we anticipate doing, but if something comes up and it makes more sense, or we have more needs to shuffle the project around, then we have the ability to do so.
And that's based on our policies and needs of our district, that's correct?
Yes.
Oh, I had another question, sorry. That's why I want to make notes.
Can I finish
Go
up
ahead. Oh, yeah,
just
go ahead. Yeah,
on
yeah.
this one, if you don't mind? And Tim also has his hand up, I believe. So we moved funds for the purchase of that building. We ended up not using all of those funds.
Correct.
Can you help me with, but we're using to improve it so we can actually use it, which makes sense, right? There's some money that has to go into making it from whatever it was to what we need.
Yep.
That's through levy funds. The funds that we moved, that we didn't use all of them, what happened to those?
So right now, because, again, when we came to the board, we had 3 pieces of property that we were looking at.
Correct.
We purchased 2 pieces of those property.
Okay,
The remaining dollars that we asked for that were in anticipation for the purchase of the 3rd property are still sitting in that space in case that 3rd property comes open. Now, if it absolutely, there's no way it's gonna happen, and then as we've said before, that money will go back in to make sure that those projects that were, impacted by the 7 projects that we moved over,
Yep.
will be able to be completed by the remaining dollars, just like we said we would.
absolutely. And is there kind of a, I don't know, when do we say
Yeah.
no, this is really
Yeah.
not gonna happen?
How long are
or
we gonna wait? For
How
that
long do
property
we
to
hold
come in?
hope for?
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't have an answer for you, but I think that needs to be a reasonable amount of time, whether now is a reasonable amount of time, or 6 months from the day that we got approved for that is a reasonable amount of time, a year. I don't know, but I can tell you that we have not taken that and put it right back into the levy, just because when we went to have a conversation with the church, and they're like, well, here's our offer, and we're like, we're not ready for that yet. We didn't just go back and say, okay, well, let's put it right back into the levy. We're like, there's some time, because there's a lot of
Negotiation.
factors in here that it's like, we don't want to go put it back and then have to come back to the board and say, hey, remember that piece of property we're looking at? Well, now they're interested.
Yeah.
And so now we want to come back to you and do this all over again. So, yeah, I would say there would be a reasonable amount of time. I can't answer that right now, but I understand your question, and it makes sense to have some sort of endpoint versus just like infinity.
Yep.
Yeah.
So can I just recap what I heard to make sure? So we moved over 5.6 million to be able to purchase 3 properties. 2 of those 3 properties, that money was used as allocated. The 3rd property, thank you for not buying property that was more expensive than, right?
Its value, yeah.
Than its value. We appreciate that. Our voters appreciate that. And so we still have that sitting there waiting just in case it opens. And that's going to be for a reasonable amount of time. And it is not used for anything else. It is only allocated for that of which it was approved to be moved over for. If that property ends up not, because commercial real estate can take a while, it's not always a fast process. If that does not look possible, then it will be moved back into the bond funds to continue with all of the projects. However,
Levy funds.
I'm sorry.
Back into levy.
Back into levy, sorry, thank you. Put it back into levy. However, that does not affect any of the bond projects that we had expected. Levy funds are always fluid, we know that.
That's correct.
Okay. Did I miss anything?
No, you did very well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Director Clark.
This is on the bond project schedule, Grass Lake. There was significant lighting and controls put in there. And it refers to demand limiting controls for energy conservation. I'm just curious, was that all internal in the building, or was there controls that touched exterior lighting?
Yes, are you referring to the DDC controls? The Grass Lake DDC controls on the bond? The Grass Lake DDC controls?
He's referring to the second half of that statement where it says, and add demand limiting controls for energy conservation.
Yes, that is all within the control program that's installed at that site, and it just helps, schedule lighting and HVAC use and airflows and other systems that would otherwise, it just helps them run in more of a cost-effective and energy.
All right, so it's much more than lighting.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, those controls are tied into a system, and it allows, it's like the parking lot lights come on at night, but then they go off at a certain time throughout the night, and no one has to be there to turn the light switch off. And then they come back on in the morning before people show up, and then they turn off when it gets light out. So, yeah, they work hand in hand with photo cells and programs and other various sensors.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can I ask about just prioritization, how we figure, I'm looking at a lot of the 1993 carpeting. It looks like many of them have been done. I look at Jenkins Creek, I looked at Cedar Valley, but then we have like Meridian Elementary, Cedar Heights. How is it determined? I think we want to replace all 1993 carpeting.
Yes, and this is something that also started prior to both Dave and I being part of Capital. It was almost like the schools were being piecemealed. You know, you'd have some carpets replaced in 93, some carpets replaced in 2001, and then maybe some older, some newer, but really there were maps associated with these, and most all the carpets were old. So going forward, we decided to, instead of just going after 1993 carpets and then marking those ones down, we said, okay, well, let's take the 93 and the 98s. It's 2018, let's just do all the carpets in that building. And then we know that all the carpets in that building were done in 2018. To your point, yes, the way we determine these projects as far as priority goes is just communication with our environmental services team and our facilities team. We look at condition. Some schools might have carpet that's older than others, but the carpet might be in better condition because of the level of care over the years. So we really take a lot of factors into consideration when we decide to move forward with one replacement over another. And we have to also perform this work over a period of time because we just don't have the vendors available to just go out and let all the carpets throughout all the buildings be replaced at one time. And not just that, but we have to be diligent in making choices to make sure that we can still run summer programs throughout our buildings and not just take them all offline at once.
I guess one question I have, and I thought similar too, and then I was just like, man, Meridian Elementary is really old, and I get maybe if we want to replace it, that we don't put as much into it, but we also don't want it falling down around people. So at what point are we deciding that twice the lifespan of a school, or 3 times already, looking at this, of a school, do we just say, you know what, we're gonna put that in a construction bond, the next cycle, whatever that be? Has that conversation been had?
Yes, and that's a good question, President Beno. At the slide with the school facility timeline on page 3, or slide 3, really gives an idea of where our schools sit, and they've been taken care of tremendously well over the years. But to your point, we have schools like Meridian Elementary that just received all new windows. They, shot blasted the outside exterior, repainted. They did a lot of work and really brought that building up to a great standard. And the way they built that building, back I think it was in the 1930s.
38.
38, yeah. It just has tremendous structure. So I could imagine a building like that going through even another couple of pretty good remodels and maintaining its structure for years to come. And I can compare that to something that was built in the 90s, like Sunrise or Daniel, where you have this EFIS system that does not hold up quite as well. I could probably say we'd see a Daniel or a Sunrise being replaced before Meridian, and they're 60 years apart from being built.
And just to add to that, like the piece in here, so the carpet piece is on the annex. Annex was built in 93. So the front part of the building is 38, and again, as Brett said, and I think Dave has shared in conversations as well, it's like 13 inches thick of concrete. It's built like a tank. And they had all the brand new HVAC and the brand new windows and all the new paint job and things like that. There have been conversations because the front part of the building being the oldest part of the building, and it's a small part of the building. When you think about how big that building is, it's only about a third of the entire school is the old part of the building. But what comes with a building that's 90 years old is the fact that classrooms, hallways, spaces, office space, everything's different, and it's like those are the kinds of things. If you see some work at Meridian in the future, you might see like a gutting of the inside of the old building and a rebuilding of the inside of it, but not taking down the actual outside structure that is so strong and sturdy. So, but there's been conversations that people bring it up all the time, like, oh, why isn't Meridian getting torn down? It's almost 100 years old. It's like, well, it's the strongest building we have in the entire district, And again, it goes back to environmental services taking care of our facilities so well. But it doesn't mean there aren't upgrades and updates needed in some of those spaces as well.
But it is a conversation, right? Like,
Yep.
obviously it's happening.
Oh, sure.
And whatever the next bond cycle is, because we know in the 90s, there was not so great builds happening in the 90s. And so that's just kind of things to think about too. So, good. Other questions? We don't want to waste 12 more minutes until 6. Director Clark? No other questions? Any final thoughts, any words?
I just want to thank Brett and Dave and the capital planning team and Gordon's support with facilities and for one, the environmental services and facilities team taking care of all of our buildings, and then for the great work the capital planning team and projects teams does with making sure that we're getting the projects done in a timely manner and to a high quality, and that's important. Sometimes things take longer than we want them to, and just appreciate the persistence of our capital planning team and things that you guys shared tonight. This information, just so you know, will be shared with you as well. It'll also probably very soon be put on the website and accessible to everybody. So. Now you can get this already if you wanted to go into each school.
Yes.
You can already see this, but it's like as far as a spreadsheet goes, and looking at it this way, that'll be available.
I really appreciate this view of it, and I know it's a tremendous amount of work to put all of this together. And it's really nice to have all of this kind of as I'd say one sheet, but it's like a 27 sheet.
Yeah.
It's a lot to look
The
at.
team does a
yes.
lot of work, and can I just echo the environmental services for keeping our schools up through all of the years. Big thanks to them.
Awesome. If nothing else, it is 5:49. I'm going to adjourn our work session, And we are going to have an executive session starting at 6 o'clock for approximately 30 minutes. The purpose of the executive session is to evaluate qualifications of applicants for public employment and to discuss with legal counsel potential litigation and the legal and financial risks of a course of action. And we are now adjourned. Here we go. Good evening. It is 6:30, and I'm going to call our regular board meeting to order. I'm going to start with the roll call, 1.03. At this time, the board will take a roll call for attendance. I'll call each board member's name, and if they're present, they will say present or something like it. Director Farr.
Present.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Hamada.
Present.
Good to see you. Vice President Margell.
Present.
And I am present physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually. I'm going to call on Vice President Margell to say the pledge.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. Welcome. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We welcome the public's participation in this board meeting and thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those of you who are viewing on our live stream. The process for audience participation. The purpose of board meetings is for the board to conduct our business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to comments from visitors. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide the items directly to our safety services staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and superintendent following the meeting. Those wishing to comment must complete a comment card and turn into either before the meeting begins or no later than the beginning of the legislative update. No cards will be accepted once this report has begun, and the comment turn-in box is back there. Visitors who have completed a comment card indicating a desire to speak to an agenda item will be called at that portion of the agenda. There is a brief delay in the live stream audio. We'll allow for extra time for you to make your way to the boardroom if you are in an overflow room. When it is your turn to address the board, please state your name at the start of your testimony. Public comments will be heard after the opening, during preliminary communications from the audience, at specific agenda items, and during the final communication from the audience. Students will be the first to speak on any topic. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. You will hear a timer when the 3 minutes are up. Please do not use specific names of staff or students or personal identifiable information. Comments concerning the performance of a public employee or official may be heard in executive session as authorized under the Open Public Meetings Act, RCW 42.30.1101F. Abusive public comments personally directed towards staff or board members will not be tolerated. The president may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, obscene, or irrelevant. Per board procedure, written materials to provide board members with background information should be submitted to the superintendent's office at least 1 week in advance of the meeting. There's a lot. But we will move on to 1.06, where I'm going to have Director Clark read our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you, Director Clark. I am now going to go to 1.07 for agenda review and ask Dr. Behringer if there are any changes to the agenda.
President Meno, there are no changes to the agenda this evening.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
A motion has been made to approve the agenda. Any discussion or questions or additions? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 All opposed say no, and there's none, and no abstentions. Motion passes. We will now go to 2.0. We have a lot of recognition and proclamations to read this month, so I'm going to turn it over to 2.01, National Bullying Prevention Month, and ask Vice President Margell to read the proclamation.
I have the privilege of reading our first proclamation of the evening. It is the Kent School District Proclamation, National Bullying Prevention Month. Whereas school bullying has become an increasingly significant problem in the United States and Washington State, and whereas over 20% of the youth in the United States are estimated to be involved in bullying each year, either as a bully or as a victim. And whereas an estimated 160,000 students in kindergarten through 12th grade miss school every day due to a fear of being bullied, and whereas bullying can take many forms, including verbal, physical, and most recently in cyberspace, and can happen in many places off and on school grounds, and whereas it is important for Kent School District parents, students, teachers, and school administrators to be aware of bullying and to encourage discussion of the problem as a school community, and whereas the Kent School Board has an active policy prohibiting harassment, intimidation, and bullying, encouraging positive behaviors, and eliminating bullying behaviors for all students, employees, legal guardians, parents, volunteers, and community members. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Kent School District recognizes the month of October 2023 as National Bullying Prevention Month in the Kent School District, with the intention that the issue of bullying and its prevention be discussed in Kent School District schools and classrooms during that time. Signed this 25th day of October 2023 by the Board of Directors of Kent School District and Israel Vela, Secretary to the Board.
Thank you, Vice President Margell. We're going to go 2.02, Proclamation for Filipino American Heritage and History Month, read by Director Farah.
Thank you. I have the privilege of reading this proclamation of Filipino American Heritage Month. Whereas Filipino Americans are one of the largest Asian American and Pacific Islanders ethnic population in Washington State and the second largest in the United States. And whereas Filipino Americans contribute to the enrichment of and quality of life in our state and the nation. And whereas the earliest documented Filipino presence in the continental United States was October 18, 1587, when the first Lucenos Indios arrived in Marco Bay, California. And whereas Filipino American History Month provides an opportunity to promote the study of Filipino American history and culture, recognize the richness of Filipino American ethnicity, and honor the contributions of Filipino Americans, especially their service with distinction in the United States military. And whereas Washington's educational leaders are developing programs and resources to support stronger partnership between families, schools, and communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors, Kent School District, joins Washington State Governor Jay Inslee and the Washington State House of Representatives in proclaiming the month of October as Filipino American History Month. Signed this 25th day of October 2023 by all board members and Secretary of the Board, Israel Vela.
Thank you very much. 2.03, Proclamation National Principals Month, also read by Director Farah.
I get to read two. Whereas the National Association of Secondary School Principals and the National Association of Elementary School Principals have declared the month of October 2023 as the National Principals Month. Whereas principals are educational visionaries, instructional and assessment leaders, disciplinarians, community builders, budget and analysts, facilities managers, and administrators of legal and contractual obligations. Whereas principals work collaboratively with teachers, parents to develop and implement a clear mission, high curriculum, standards, and performance goals. Whereas principals create the environment that facilitates with great teaching and learning and continuous school improvement. Whereas the vision, actions, and dedications of principals provide the mobilizing force behind any school reform effort. Whereas the celebration of National Principals Month honors elementary school, middle school, high school principals in ensuring that every child has access to a high-quality education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors and Kent School District proclaimed the month of October 2023 as a National Principals Month. Signed this 25th day of October 2023 by Kent School Board Directors and Secretary of Board Israel Bella.
Thank you very much. We're going to,
Point of privilege,
of course
President
you
Bento.
can.
Do we have any principals in the room tonight? If they could please stand, so we could recognize them.
Great. Thank you, Director Hamada. We're going to move on to 2.04, Proclamation for National School Lunch Week, and Director Hamada will read that proclamation.
Whereas having access to and eating nutritious lunch is an important part of a student's educational day and positively impacts their ability to learn. And whereas the Kent School District is an active participant in the National School Lunch Program, which is dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children, with the goal to provide nutritional, attractive, and currently free lunches to all students and other children 18 years of age and younger. And whereas the district staff of the Nutrition Services Department work together to provide a quality lunch program that offers healthy meals that include local and regional food products identified through an expanding farm-to-school program and actively supports the goals of the academic community. And whereas this theme, Level Up with School Lunch, is a timely reminder that research shows that children who participate in the school lunch program perform better in their academic efforts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Kent School District Board of Directors supports the work of nutrition services staff and proudly proclaims the week of October 9th through the 13th, 2023, National School Lunch Week in the Kent School District. Signed this 25th day of October by the entire board and the Secretary of the Board.
Thank you, Director Hamada. I'm going to go to 2.05. Director Clark is going to read Proclamation for America's Safe Schools Week.
Whereas schools make substantial contributions to the future of America and to the development of our nation's young people as knowledgeable, responsible, and productive citizens, and whereas the National School Safety Center, state governors, and state school superintendents sponsor America's Safe Schools Week the week of October 17 to 23, 2023, whereas excellence in education is dependent on safe, secure, and peaceful school settings, and whereas the safety and well-being of many students, teachers, and school staff are unnecessarily jeopardized by crime and violence such as substance abuse, gangs, bullying, poor discipline, vandalism, and absenteeism in our schools, and whereas it is the responsibility of all students and citizens to enhance the learning experiences of young people by helping to ensure fair and effective discipline, promote good citizenship, and generally make schools safe and secure. Whereas all leaders, especially those in education, law enforcement, government, and business, should eagerly collaborate with each other in the National School Safety Center, which is a partnership of the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Education, to focus public attention on school safety and identify, develop, and promote innovative answers to these critical issues. And whereas school safety programs in numerous schools and school districts throughout the country, along with national programs, are among those innovative answers, and whereas the observance of America's Safe School Week will substantially promote efforts to provide all our nation's schools with positive and safe learning climates. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors emphasizes the importance of making our schools safe, secure, and peaceful places for learning, teaching, and working, free of drugs, alcohol, weapons, and fear, and proclaims the week of October 17th through 23, 2023, as National America Safe Schools Week in the Kent School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. I'm going to move to 2.06, Proclamation of LGBT History Month. That I'm going to read. Whereas LGBT History Month celebrates the achievements of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender individuals, and whereas in 1994, a Missouri high school teacher gathered other teachers and community leaders, selected the month of October to be dedicated to the celebration of teaching gay and lesbian history. And whereas just under a quarter of students are taught LGBT history in schools, and only 4 states requires public schools to include LGBT history in the curriculum. And whereas LGBT History Month was recognized to remind both the LGBT and wider communities of the important roles LGBT individuals have played in creating the social, legal, and political worlds in which we live. And whereas the Kent School District Board believes in fostering an educational environment that is safe and free of discrimination for all students, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, etc. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors recognizes the month of October as LGBT History Month, encourages the discussion of LGBT history in schools and classrooms during this time. Signed this 25th day of October, 2023 by the Board of Directors and Secretary to the Board. 2.07, National School Bus Safety Week, Director Hamada.
Whereas National School Bus Safety Week is an active and involving public education program and is an excellent way for parents, students, teachers, motorists, school bus operators, school administration, and community members to join together to address the importance of school bus safety. And whereas Kent School District buses meet or exceed federal and state regulations and consistently receive a 100% passing score in the annual inspection by the State Patrol, and whereas many students begin and end their day with a school bus ride, approximately 8,350 students are transported daily for 113 routes and 150 school buses traveling approximately 1,415,000 miles each year. Whereas this year's theme for National School Bus Safety Week is driving safely into the future, the board recognizes the high caliber of the transportation team and commends staff for the exemplary job of safely transporting students. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors emphasizes the importance of student safety and proclaims the week of October 16th through the 20th, 2023, National School Bus Safety Week in the Kent School District, signed this day of October 23rd by the entire board and the Secretary of the Board.
Thank you, Director Hamada. On our final proclamation this evening, 2.08, National Physical Therapy Month, read by Vice President Morgell.
Thank you. Whereas the Kent School District is committed to supporting students with special needs and providing every student with equal access to education regardless of physical needs, and whereas the American Physical Therapy Association recognizes how physical therapists and their assistants improve people's lives by restoring and improving their abilities of movement, and whereas the Kent School District encourages staff, student, and community members to help increase awareness of the benefits of physical therapy during the month of October. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Directors of Kent School District proclaim the month of October as National Physical Therapy Month in the Kent School District and call upon its citizens and civic organizations to join in the national efforts to raise the awareness of physical therapy and how therapists and their assistants improve students' access to education. Signed this 25th day of October 2023 by the entire board of the Kent School District and Israel Vela, Secretary to the Board.
Thank you, everyone, for reading the proclamations. We're going to move now to 3.0, our preliminary communication for the audience. I see one. There's another time for people to submit comments coming up soon. Usually we'll read in-person student comments first. It looks like we have one. And then general comments, there's none, and no online comments. And again, as a reminder, we don't necessarily comment or respond to comments. It doesn't mean we don't care, but we will address your concern after tonight's meeting, because that's generally how we do these comments. So don't feel discouraged because this is a student comment that we're not listening to or you don't care. We just want to hear what you have to say, and then we'll get back to you. All right, so the first person is going to be New Den, who is going to have a public comment. Come on up.
Hello everyone, I'm Yu and I'm currently a new student at Cambridge High School. Sorry, my English is not good and I may say something wrong. I hope everyone understand. I would like to present my personal opinion. It is common for a student to stay after school hours to participate in club activity or attend other classes. And they are bused to take you home, but they will stop at the elementary school closest to your house. In my opinion, if that's the case, there will be many students going home nearby, but there will also be students walking home further. For some other reason about safety, maybe on the way home, something bad could happen that will make your parents disagree and feel uneasy. If the bus takes you home to your regular bus stop, it will be safer and perhaps your participation in activity will be more active. I have finished my presentation and thank everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. We'll have someone get back to you about your comments, and we appreciate you coming up and speaking to us. Thank you so much. Awesome. All right, no further, there is a chance before our legislative update, if someone wants to speak and submit a comment card, there is a chance, just so you know. But we're gonna move on to 4.0 for our superintendent's report, and I'm going to call on Dr. Behringer to give the superintendent report.
Thank you, President Benno. Just a quick shout out. It is National Principals Month, and I know that Director Amata brought that to our attention, and I appreciate all of the time and effort and energy and commitment that our principals give to our kids, our school, our staff, and our community every single day. School wouldn't be school without our principals at the helm, so we appreciate all of your time and energy, and thank you for National Principals Month. It's been a busy couple weeks. We've got students and staff wrapping up the first quarter tomorrow. It's hard to believe that we're already a quarter into the school year. And then our community as well as staff are getting ready for levies that are coming up on the ballot on November 7th. So it's a really busy time of year this year. We've got homecomings going on at all of our high schools over the last few weeks and coming into this week as well. Last week I was able to join Carol Cleveland, Randy Heath, Lori Paxton, and John Rissmiller from Teaching and Learning, as well as representatives from the City of Kent and Kinetic West, as we reviewed KSD student data regarding our CTE and STEM educational partnerships we have within the region. It was great to be able to engage in dialogue and work through student data and responses to surveys that our students gave last spring, and looking at opportunities and access for our kids in the future to continue accessing STEM and CTE opportunities within our business community. Had a meeting last week with KEA again, just an ongoing meeting, just an opportunity for listening and engaging in dialogue and partnership as we move through the school year this year, and that's been nice. We've continued our work throughout the district and our leadership with our strategic plan goal areas. Our action planning leadership teams have been meeting in all the different goal and commitment areas in this new strategic plan. Just so happens the group that I'm sponsoring and partnering with, we've got a great team of student-focused leaders in Simone Hamilton, Carol Cleveland, Faith Sicily, Carolyn Curry, and Sean Snell, as we're digging into creating more opportunities for student voice across Kent School District. So we're pretty excited about that. And again, the work that we do every single day is for our students. So increasing the opportunities for students to share their thoughts and opinions and feelings and needs, I think, is a critical piece that we need to continue to develop. In the coming weeks, we'll be adding additional people to our various teams, meeting the various goals and commitment areas throughout the strategic plan. So we look forward to engaging additional voices in those spaces. Last week, we had our second all KSD Admin Center staff meeting. We had 220 people attend via Teams, where each of our associate superintendents of our communities were able to give a 3 to 5 minute kind of elevator speech about all the great things that are going on and working on in each of their communities. So all of the rest of our staff up here at central office who may not be on the front lines of communication all had an opportunity to hear everything that we're doing across the district, as well as ask questions and engage in dialogue after. So great opportunity to continue to communicate with everyone. Last Friday I was out in schools pretty much all day, started down at Mill Creek with Principal Fitney and the BoardDocs, and worked my way over to Patrick O'Connor and our Park Orchard. They were having Superhero Day, which is pretty cool, so I got to get in a picture. I looked a little awkward because I didn't have a superhero costume on, but I was with 25 elementary kids who were like coming up to my waist, and they had their superhero costumes on, so I felt pretty special. It was pretty awesome. They were super excited and they looked great. And then I was able to continue my day going over to Panther Lake and Pampogson, Ken Elementary with Dr. Rosa Villarreal, Jennifer Osgood down at Neely O'Brien, Trish Stollard at River Ridge, and then wrapped up the day with Sue Whitehall at our outreach program. Again, Fridays are those days that kind of allow me to get grounded back in the work, why we do the work we do, and that's being in schools with our leaders and being in classrooms and walking the hallways and seeing our kids learning and being excited about learning and engaging in those learning environments, and that's super important. As I stated in the work session earlier, we met with Kent Parks and Rec as we're continuing our partnership with them around our fields and our ongoing shared spaces agreement. Believe it or not, we met for our first inclement weather team meeting because you can never be too prepared to get ready for inclement weather that may or may not arrive depending on which channel or weather group you're listening to. But we want to be ready. We're reviewing our practices and our forward-facing communications to make sure we're ready to get started. And then Parent Forum. My group I'm hosting is our Parent Forum. This is the first group that we will be starting. We finished applications. 131 parents applied to be a part of the Parent Forum. And so it's the process of going through and drawing names out of a hat for each of our strands to make sure that we have a well-represented demographic group of our students that we serve in this community. It's been a challenge. So we're looking forward to communicating out to those parents that have been selected, one as the on the parent forum, as well as alternates in case others are not able to make it. And then the final thing is that we got back our parent calendar survey, almost 4,000 respondents to our community survey for the calendar. So trying to look at that, and then as we step into next week, engaging our labor partners in the conversations around the calendar as well. So we look forward to moving, at a pretty good pace so we can communicate early on once we get to that decision-making point from our labor partners as well as the district, and then taking into consideration our parent and community input. So that concludes my report.
Awesome. I look forward to the superhero pictures and you being the villain in our board update. We're going to move to 5.0, our legislative update. But before we go to Director Hamada, this is now the time for us to churn in our public comments if we want to speak at the end of our meeting. So I'm going to wait a sec. Some wait time for people to run towards the blue bucket in the back. And I don't see anyone moving. So I guess public comment is now closed and you can get us next time at our next public meeting. I'm now going to call on Director Hamada to give the legislative update.
Thank you, President Bento. Just a little bit about what WASDA has been doing. They have been electing some of the state offices. The State Board of Education in our western region it was voted on, and the voting ended the 16th of October. Every board director gets to vote on these, that it has the credentials for voting on that, and Mary E. Furtakis, who has a master's in education, is going to be our representative elected. They're going to have a runoff for the eastern region, so they're still working on that. And it looks like they actually have a representative from the private school position, and it looks like that is Jane Marie Brown. I don't know that lady, but that's who was elected on that. Our new president of our WASDA elected board is from the Walla Walla School Board, and it's Derek Sarley. And our new vice president from WASDA is Melissa Beard, and she's from the Tumwater School District. So these are all people that will be heading up WASDA. We belong in WASDA. It's made up of districts. We belong to District 2, and the people that will be representing us on District 2, there's several of them, is going to be Trudy Davis from Federal Way School District, Liza Rankin from the Seattle School Board, Arlista Holman from the Auburn School Board is our resolutions committee person for 2 years. The legislative committee person in District 2 is Dave Larson from the Tukwila School Board. The legislative committee from District 2 is Sarah Betnell, and I will be representing District 2 in the Interscholastic Athletics and Activity Committee for a 2-year commitment. We also have breakdowns in ESDs. We're in Puget Sound ESD 121. There's 9 districts, and the people who were elected in those representative positions are Annie Laurie Armstrong and Sharad Sams. So those are some people that represent our WASDA and our state school board that all work for the betterment of our children. We have a convention coming up November 16th through the 18th. It's going to be held this year in Bellevue. They have tons of people that have signed up for it. They have tons of wonderful things that are going to go on to take advantage of for school boards. And I understand even our president is going to be heading up one of those interesting formats that we should come and attend. So that'll be exciting to have us represented there in that situation. I want to let everybody know that we got in our 10 positions from our school district and on our priorities, and thank you to those who turned them in. And just in general, I'll be talking about that more specifically, but the top 10 that the directors that turned their information in are in those top 10. So that will now go to the state board committee of some of those people that I just mentioned are on that legislative committee, and then they will develop a 10-point thing that all the directors in the WASDA in the state of Washington will go together to Olympia to try to get those things changed. That's basically all I have for right now. We're just in the process of getting those together, and probably in January things will really be heated up so we can talk about a lot of issues. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hamada. We are now going to move on to 6.0, which is discussion and approval, and we have some items to discuss. Our first one is our 6.01, the second reading and approval of board goals in alignment with district goals and superintendent evaluation framework.
I make a motion to approve 6.01 second reading and approval of board goals in alignment with district goals and superintendent evaluation framework.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? And I hear that Dr. Nyland is online, or now I see him. So if anybody has any questions, discussion. This might be an easy night for you, Dr. Nyland. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of approval of 6.01, second reading of board goals in alignment with district goals and superintendent evaluation framework, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. There's none and no abstention. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Nyland.
Well then,
Boom, it's out.
That's it. All right, 6.02.
President Bento, I move 6.02, second reading and approval of policy 1830, participation in school boards association.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
We are automatically part of the Washington State School Directors Association. So this is simply declaring as a board member, we have to belong. And then, of course, deal with the dues and policies that dominate the annual meetings.
Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of 6.02, second reading of policy 1830, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. None, and no abstention. Motion carries. 6.03.
President Bento, I move that the second reading and approval of policy 2090, program evaluation, be passed.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wait time? No? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of 6.03, second reading of policy 2090, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. None, no abstention, motion carries. 6.04.
I move for the approval of 6.04, second reading and approval of policy 3520, student fees, fines, or charges.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Wait time? Seeing none. All those in favor of approval of second reading policy 3520, 6.04, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. None, and no abstention, so motion carries. 6.05.
President Beno, I motion to the approval of 6.05, 11th reading and approval of policy 4220, complaints concerning staff or programs.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I will not be voting in favor of this, as I am troubled by the discontinuity between this and general state policy.
Other discussion?
Do you care to elaborate on what you feel like?
Well, the first part of it is, in fact, basically totally in alignment with the WASDA policy on that. The second part was devised here locally, and I'm troubled by it.
In what way can you?
First of all, should not be a mention of the superintendent in this particular type of policy. If you recall how it was originally written, it's about how to handle complaints. Neither the board nor the superintendent should be included in any section of that. Instead, we started to try and accommodate individual needs, and I'm troubled by that.
Director Hamada.
And I will be voting in favor of it. I was in favor when we made these changes, adding the superintendent a few years ago, and it had several readings. I am in favor of having this only be effective to residents of the Kent School Board District or parents or guardians of students in the Kent School District may file a complaint under this policy, because this is our school district and this is affecting our kids. And no employees of the Kent School District may file a complaint against another employee under this policy, because we have unions and contracts and CBOs that cover that already, so we don't need that. No complaint may be filed against a board member or the board collective under this policy, because that's pretty much Washington state law. The last paragraph, which we added with our former board, the superintendent designee will develop procedures to handle concerning staff or programs. Complaints regarding instructional material should be pursued in the manner provided for Procedure 2020, Curriculum development and adoption of instructional materials. The last sentence in the paragraph, I think I want to read in the first paragraph, that's what I was trying to get at. Complaints received by the board or a board member will be referred to the superintendent designee for investigation, except that complaints against the superintendent shall be under the board's oversight. And I like the wording on that. It's taken us 11 times to get there, to get everybody on this new board in agreement with it, and I will be voting yes.
Other discussion?
I'm trying to see, because the way I read this is, I mean, we have, as a board, we have only one employee, which is the superintendent. And so if we're supervising the superintendent, I mean, that's our job. So I don't see Director Clark where
But that's not what 4220 was aimed at. It's aimed specifically about dealing with a process to deal with employees, but not the board and its interaction with the public and the superintendent.
Is there any place in our policies at present, Director Clark, that does refer to that?
No, because of the way the entire agency is designed. The entire purpose of electing a local school board is to give local control over how the school district will be run, and the primary leader of that is the superintendent.
But our policies state that the board is in charge of the employment of the superintendent, and the superintendent's job is to run the district and staff. So that's in our policies already.
Yes, but not this policy, which
Okay.
is aimed at dealing with complaints.
Okay. Other questions? Discussion?
I had put forward the language of under the board's oversight, and I feel like it explains what the role of the board already is. I think that this is what Director Farrow was saying, is that it's a statement of our role as the board anyway. And I support that language.
Ditto. Other discussion, feedback? Are we ready to vote? Wait time, wait time, wait time. Educator wait time is the longest, let me tell you. Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the second reading, 6.0.
11th reading.
11th reading, yeah, I'm like second, 11th reading, 6.05, policy 4220. Please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No,
And no abstentions, so motion carries 4-1. 6.06.
I'd move approval 606, second reading and approval of policy 6210, purchasing and contracting authorization and control.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of second reading, 6.06, policy 6210, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. None, and no abstention, so motion carries. 6.07.
President Bento, I move that we, 6.07, second reading and approval of policy 6220, bidder request for proposal requirements be adopted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of 6.07, second reading of policy 6220, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. None, no abstention, motion carries. 6.08.
I move for the approval of 6.08, second reading and approval of policy 6550, capitalization threshold for leases and SBITAs.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving 6.08, second reading of policy 6550, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. None, and no abstention. Motion carries. 6.09.
I make a motion to approve 6.09, second reading and approval of policy 6605, student safety, walking, biking, riding, buses, and school patrol.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I would like to hear, we've talked recently about the walking distances and that our district stands out as the anomaly kind of in the area for having longer walking distances for our students. And then also that by doing that, it seems that we're foregoing potential income or offsetting expenses for those. And just if we could talk about that a little bit.
Vice President Margell, appreciate the question. Just as a reminder, this particular approval of 6605 was specifically just with the addition of the school patrol. That's the only piece that we are adding to this. And then we said that we would be bringing this policy back to a policy work session to be able to address previous questions and comments around walking distances. As we know, that is something that we would like to continue to discuss in the within the board. So it will be brought back.
Thank you. And did we set a date for when that next discussion is? I think that was more what I was looking for. I should have clarified.
It's a great question. I don't know. I'll have to check with our policy coordinator. We have not set a date on that yet. But since it is a conversation that's come up a couple different times, we can look at seeing if we can't put that on the nearest policy work session or the one right after that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. I was going to ask the same thing. Thank you for reading my mind.
Great.
Yes. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of 6.09, second reading of policy 6605, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. None. No abstention. Motion carries. All right, so now we have the consent agenda, but we have some people want to pull some items for discussion. Director Clark.
Move to remove 711.
711.
704.
704. And then 705, 706, and 707 were also asked to be pulled.
No.
No? No.
They have to be.
It would have to be if you want to not vote on those.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Other items that we want to pull for discussion? So then can I have a motion to approve 7.01 through 7.04, or no, 7.03, 708 to 710, and then 712?
I move to approve in the consent agenda items 701 through 703, 708 through 710, and 712.
Second.
There's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, 7.01 to 703, 708 to 710, and 712, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. None, no abstention, motion carries. So now we're going to go to 7.04, and we need a motion for 704.
I move for adoption 7.04, field trip and student travel authorization, Kentridge High School, music to Anaheim, California, which sounds wonderful.
And
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now for discussion.
I'm going to abstain as I have the privilege of being a chaperone on that trip.
Thank you, and you can
Thank you.
step out. We'll let you know when it's time to come back in. Other discussion about this amazing sounding music field trip
Musical trip.
to Anaheim.
I mean, it sounds great. I mean, taking our kids to Anaheim and getting them to participate. I mean, what else is there to discuss?
I mean, right? It sounds great.
Well, I mean, it is an educational opportunity where you are in great concerted, focused audience observation, and so the kids really do have to shine in that particular circumstance, and they do, and so it's a part about student growth, and so it's a positive.
It's a positive.
Other discussion?
Well, I might say that back in the day, I so much enjoyed this as a person that was very involved in music and piano and clarinet and oboe and on, but when we met and saw all these other experiences, or we got to participate, it just enhanced my interest to go forward, and I took it all the way into my college days, into a lot of music and stuff that I studied. So it's very valuable.
I always appreciate field trips like this because I know when I talk to a bunch of my students, and I teach in Renton, a majority of my students have never even been to downtown Seattle. So to have students be able to go to a trip to Anaheim, I'm assuming Disney's involved, and be able to see amazing things and participate in a world-class musical performance, I think it's great. So I'm really glad that this is being brought forward.
Yeah, I'm glad we get to do this
Yeah.
for the kids, yeah.
Other discussion before we vote?
Well, and as I understand it, and I'm looking at this, we've, as a district, have made a commitment fund-wise for this too, even though there's a little bit of individual commitments, so we are really enhancing our music program through doing this and putting our money where our mouth is, okay?
Other discussion? Let's go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of approval of 7.01, field trip and student authorization, Kent Ridge High School, music to Anaheim, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. And then there's obviously an abstention. So motion carries. We can bring Vice President Margell back in. And then, welcome back.
Thanks.
And then for 7.05,
Move approval of 705, emergency replacement of the Kent Lake High School fire alarm project, change order number 1.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Why do we pull this?
Well, I was told I could just sit here and abstain.
Okay.
I didn't think I had to pull it.
Just
That's
to
fine.
make sure that, okay.
Oh, we have Mr. Brock Vogel coming up.
Here comes the lawyer.
Excuse me, I'm going to cough, I'm sure, at some point. Members of the board and President Beto. Yeah, the normal protocol, if you want to abstain, is to simply abstain at the time of the vote. Different from a recusal, which I think is what Director Margell just did, so as not to influence the vote, but because of sort of a perceived personal interest conflict. So you're right, it doesn't really matter whether it's pulled or not pulled. The correct procedure for abstaining is to do it at the time of the vote. I don't know if that scratches your itch, but
That makes sense. So I wanted it pulled that way. If we vote on the whole cassette agenda, then Director Hamada would have an option to abstain from those items.
Okay.
Hopefully that's the parliamentary procedure way to do it, but what do I know?
Well, otherwise, there's no other way to abstain to just particular items. You would be abstaining to the entire
Entire thing.
consent.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you're right, she has to, right.
Yep.
Yes.
See, there we go.
Can I stay up here or do I have to leave?
You're abstaining, so you're not recusing, so you
I
can
just want to
stay.
make sure we're doing it right.
So then I want to correct myself, because I said Director Margell abstained the last vote, she did not, which is different. So that's my bad. So for the record, I made that mistake. So thank you so much. So let's call for a vote for 7.05, emergency replacement of Kent Lake High School, no.
Discussion.
Oh, discussion. Oh, yeah, my bad. Discussion.
We've had
I
enough.
think we had the
Is
discussion.
there, but if there's any more.
Yeah, no further discussion.
No further.
So now
Okay,
let's
okay,
vote.
okay.
So all those in favor of 7.05, emergency replacement of Kent Lake High School fire alarm project, change order number 1, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Abstention? And motion carries.
Move approval of 706, Meeker Middle window glazing, change order number 2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is the same.
See, yep, correct. Seeing none, let's go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of 7.06, Meeker Middle School window glazing, change order 2, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. 7.07.
Move approval of 707, River Ridge Elementary Military Road South Sidewalk Project, change order number 1.
Second.
It's been moved and thirded. It's been moved to second. Discussion.
This has been a real challenge for the neighborhood in that area, and I'm pleased to observe that, in fact, it was a cooperation between the city of SeaTac and the city of Kent to make it a much safer environment for the students there. We're still troubled by the traffic flow in that area, and I have no response to that at this time. But it's at least a much better working, safer operation.
I just want to add to it also because the timeline that we finished that project was also written on the Seattle Times congratulating
Yeah,
us.
getting all the cooperating parties, that was nice.
Other discussion? Let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of 7.07, River Ridge Elementary Military Road Sidewalk South Sidewalk Project, change order number 1, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Abstentions? Motion carries. Director Hamada, for 7.06, you said you wanted to abstain, but you voted in favor. Do we want to change our vote on that? Do we need to revote on that one?
I thought I voted abstention. I'm sorry.
So we'll probably have to revote. So someone wants to make the motion to reconsider 7.06?
I make a motion to reconsider item number 7.06, Meeker Middle Window Glazing Change Order number 2.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I apologize.
So the way it works parliamentary, we have to reconsider, and then we have to vote on it. So is that the proper procedure, Mr. Barkvogel, just in case I'm saying that correct? We have to move it off the table to reconsider, then we actually have to vote on it, or do we just reconsider and vote on it? I don't have my book in front of me, so I'm trying to remember the correct procedure.
I think the record is clear. You're reconsidering it for the purposes of Director Hamada's change in vote. That reconsider should work for the underlying substantive vote, and the record should reflect her abstaining on that vote. And that should all be that's needed.
Thank you so much. So discussion on reconsidering. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to consider to approve 7.06, Meeker Middle Window Glazing, change order number 2, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And abstentions? There, then motion carries for the record 4-0 to 1 with an abstention. All right, then we're going to move on to 7.11.
I move approval of 711, gifts, donations, and/or memorials acceptance.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Just want to acknowledge that we've gotten some wonderful gifts, particularly one to the district for equipment, uniforms, transportation, and coach education to the tune of $20,000. And that comes from Special Olympics of Washington, and that's, of course, a cooperation between the athletic department of this district and obviously Special Olympics and participation. Ken Elementary managed to raise from their community members transportation for field trips to the tune of $1,246. Ridgewood Elementary got some student needs met by a donation of $500 from Dorian Photo Studio, and Northwood Middle School got the same for student needs, $550 from Dorian Photo Studio. Thank you.
Other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of 7.11, gifts, donations, and memorials acceptance, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. And abstentions, none. Motion carries. Obviously, 8.0 is just informational, and it's just there for our viewing pleasure. And we're going to go to 9.0, final communication from the audience. And it looks like I have no communication from the audience. Have to catch you next time. So then we're going to go to 9.02, board reports and discussion. And I'm going to call on Director Farah first.
Thank you, President Beno. My report tonight is very short. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Bettinger also said, which is the thanking of principals. It's one of the things that we really want to make sure that we emphasize. As my niece, who went to KM when Dr. Bettinger was the principal, and she reminds me that all the time, so it's a really special moment. So thank you very much. I also want to thank the Brett and his team that gave us that work session tonight about the projects and how they put it together. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. I mean, we've had, say, several pages of spreadsheet and indicating, you know, which project is where, and organizing all of that takes a whole team. So I want to thank them for giving us that update, and make sure that we're informed, and also the public is informed, so that they can go into the website and be able to see how we are doing and what we're doing. I want to conclude my board report by thanking every single staff at KSD. I want to make sure that you know that you're appreciated. You are the engine that makes this thing work. And I want to make sure that you hear that every single time I get a chance to. This is important to me. This is really important to me that you know. I'm not going to get tired. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep saying this every chance I get. So thank you, and that concludes my report.
Director Clark.
I continued in my efforts to try and observe some of the outside activities that go on in our schools. This last week I saw Kent Ridge High School football, and I'll continue to try and check it. And I believe, Dr. Berenger, isn't a major cross-country meet coming up? Do you happen to know any of the details on that?
It was in our board report.
I don't, but it should be in your board report from last week, and it'll probably be in your board report this week as well.
Yeah.
Okay. yeah,
There was
could-
the all-city
Yep,
Right,
one on the 11th.
yep, that's right.
but, well, of course, then they're all aiming for the big one over on the east side. But I think there's one more district meet, and I'm just trying to track that down. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Clark. Director Hamada.
Well, again, the importance of having principals at our various schools cannot be a slight thing. It's really important when we have principals that are managing very well their own little team there. And we are very lucky in this district. And I know quite a few of them personally, and they really make a difference in their schools. We've had a lot of them recognized, including, like I mentioned last board meeting, our principal over at Pine Tree was recognized nationally. Our interim superintendent here, I think, was recognized when he was a principal of one of our high schools. And I'm sure there's others. I think also Mr. Hunter over there was a principal at one time, were you not? So they've all gotten their wings and climbed up, and now are taking that experience and using that too. So it can't be, we really value them. They have their own little cities, their own little cultures, their own little communities. So again, appreciate that. And you know, every time we're eating lunch, it reminds me that I can't, you know, sometimes I'll be doing stuff and all of a sudden I'll forget about, all of a sudden it's noon. And I just can't think anymore because I need fuel. And I can imagine that same feeling is for a child. And if that child didn't have the proper nutrition, like unfortunately, even as a nation, we have a serious problem with our kids. As rich as this country is, there's still a lot of kids living in poverty, and the poverty rate in our children is rising, which I think is just a crime. But we want to make sure they get lunch at school. We're very close in this district to getting all our kids fed. And I'm looking forward to the day that we'll be able to say that all our kids don't even have to worry about that, because then they can thrive in their schools and everybody just has the food. And I think our federal government actually is moving toward that, to trickle that down to our states, to trickle it down to our districts. But we're doing everything possible here to get our kids fed. It's extremely important. And all those people you meet in the lunchroom, because I've had lunch down there with the kids, and they're really good at what they do, and we want to thank them very much for all the stuff they do. And those bus drivers, oh my gosh, I think they have a thankless job. My daughter and I were talking about that the other night and saying, would you ever like to get your license? And she said, yes, I would. She's a teacher. And I said, no way do I want to be a bus driver. But so many of them, and especially during the times when we've had really bad snow or ice or something, and I'll see on, social media, I'll say, this bus driver took the time to walk my kid down icy streets and got off the bus, or took the, did that extra thing that made the difference in that child's life, and to see that they have the time and the wherewithal to do all that. And every day when you get on that bus, and they know those kids very well, and honestly, sometimes kids can be a handful. So we really appreciate our bus drivers. So, and I have seen that we're taking our little ones, some other schools. I was at Martin Sartoon, and I saw this author and person that does books, and Director Farrer was with me, and we met her, and I got to hear her read one of the books. But we have 3 other elementary schools that I saw on the superintendent's report that they're taking their kids on a field trip to see her again, and her books and her art. So excited to see that. Again, can't thank our district enough. Field trips, I read an article how important and value that can be in education for people to have those opportunities. There's, some of our kids, what we take for granted, they've never even seen. And if they have that opportunity in our schools, we want to try to give that to them. And that $155,000 to send those kids to California is not a drop in the bucket. It's a commitment, and I'm glad to see we did it. And that pretty much, again, I'm kind of out of it tonight. I've got a very bad sinus headache, so forgive me for making a mistake tonight. I'm trying to hang in there as best I can. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Vice President Margell.
Thank you. I think Director Hamada and I focused on a couple of the proclamations similarly this week. Lunch Week, just want to shout out and recognize the work that went in from our administration this year to be able to get so many of our schools qualified for free lunches this year, and what a difference that makes. Kids need calories to think, and just having our school lunch program to so many of our students this year is just, I think it's a great movement for the district. School Bus Safety Week. My father-in-law is a retired school bus driver, and I don't know if he would say that it was a thankless job. It's a hard job, but I can tell you he really enjoyed his students every day, and being that first person to say hello to them, and he knew all of them, and oh, you look, like you got a new jacket on, or whatever it was, that he had a nice word for everybody, and I think that was something he really enjoyed doing, so just a thank you to our bus drivers, and not only do they get our students back and forth to school safely, but also to all of our activities and our after-school activities and our sports, and just am very thankful for our community that comes out for that important role to make everything kind of work. National Bullying Prevention Month, reading that, I just know that a lot of our teachers are putting a lot of work into this, as are many of our students, not just 1 month, but every day. It does have a huge impact on our students, and the more that we can talk about it and ways that we can prevent bullying within our schools is just so important. We've been part of the district as a board, the district and superintendent goals. We continue to move on those, and that has been a big part of our last month, and excited to see where those continue to move. And what I think I like the best is just seeing how the continuity as we move from one year to the next, to be able to really see where we are and where we're trying to go. And thank you. If I may just shout out thank you for the data. We appreciate that. We heard about the calendar, 4,000 respondents. Love that. If I may, because I can, put my voice in here, the more that we can have multi-year calendars, we would love to see, and I know that I think there's many people and parents that would love to hear that, and I think it's a goal that we're trying to move towards. I recused myself from the vote for Kent Ridge going to Anaheim, but love seeing the investment in our arts and the opportunity for our students to be able to participate in that. So thank you for the vote on that. And just really excited to see all the middle school sports. We talked a lot about this with our middle schools moving up, and there's so many other things as part of the middle school, and I think that there's some really great things to talk about. But I love just seeing that we have our intramurals, and then we had our no-cut, and then our cut sports, and kind of seeing where students can find different opportunities throughout the year to be able to participate in their school and in team sports. And it was an exciting first of 4 seasons. Next one's coming up, and I got to go to a lot of the middle school soccer games and seeing so many students turn out for those and supporting their students, and it was fun. It was fun hearing people cheering throughout the game, and I know the same for our track and field, and then also our badminton. Last I would like to say is this has been our inaugural year for Toss Like a Boss, which is the Kent Schools and Special Olympics of Washington, the United Cornhole Tournament. While I did not get to participate in this one, I have been part of the Unified Basketball and been able to see that. Find a unified sports, or this year actually unified robotics too. So there's many different activities within our district of being able to be inclusive for all of our students. And I'm really kind of bummed I didn't get to see the cornhole. But I'm going to put that on my calendar for next year, but just wanted to call it out as it was our inaugural year. Last thing I just wanted to say is thank you to our students. We're all here for you and appreciate your support and enthusiasm for our district, and that concludes my board report.
Excellent. All right.
I forgot one thing.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. It's districts for girls swim.
Yes.
How did I forget that?
I don't know.
Sorry.
I was gonna
I've
bring it up.
invited every single person to this.
Because we don't have a pool.
So we are going to a pool at Curtis. They have a pool in their district, and they are doing the district swim meet. We just did have our girls swim league at Auburn. They have a pool, and we will be going to districts on dive is on Thursday. Girls swim is on Friday and Saturday, and we're excited to hopefully see some really great swims out of many, many of our girls, and look forward to hopefully seeing some go to state, which will be, you can mark your calendars, take the day off. Actually, we have the school off that day. It is on Friday, the 10th of November, and Saturday, the 11th. Sorry.
Oh, that's good.
We couldn't forget girls swim.
Perfect.
Now I'm done.
All right. Great. So I shouldn't mention Hazen's pool almost being done renovated, or?
Oh, you can mention all about it.
Sorry. So my report, I want to start with our work session today. We learned a lot about our capital levy, our capital levy and our bond from 2016. The more information, the better. I mean, I really like having this information, and I like the transparency of all the information and questions being answered, so I appreciate that. After this meeting, I get to drive to the Great Wolf Lodge and go to the CTE Administrator Conference for part of my internship. Isn't that exciting for a 7 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning?
Drive safe.
It's very exciting.
And they have a pool.
And they have a pool I will not step in at all, and have lots of hand sanitizer.
Well, I knew that pool was
ready
going to show up
for.
somehow.
But it should be a great conference. I was just at the Family Consumer Science Conference in Vancouver. I haven't worked this week at all, literally, and I don't know, at least in my classroom, but everything else I'm working for, so I don't know. I did 3 presentations. I did one on how to podcast with students, because I do a big podcasting unit. I did one on how to support LGBTQ students, and I don't know what else I did. Something about IB. I talked about IB and integrating IB career program into current IB programs, so that was kind of fun. I'm presenting at WASDA, the same LGBT presentation I did at the Family Consumer Science Conference. I am presenting at the WASDA conference for 2 hours. Ooh. So I'm excited about that. And I get to go to the all-exciting upcoming state audit exit. Ooh. So I was asked voluntold to go to this. I think I volunteered kind of, but I will be going for the board. So y'all are invited to join us, I suppose, but I will be there to talk about that.
Thank you for doing that for us.
We appreciate you.
Of course. Part of my role, I guess.
Give us your notes.
I will totally take all the notes that I need to do. Again, I'm going to kind of echo what Director Ferris said. I know my term is coming to an end, but I'm going to keep working, keep plugging away at the work that's doing. This is important work as a board director. I'll have my long speech for our December meeting, but every month I have to laugh at the 2 meetings I was promised, and additional every now and again work sessions, but just understanding that this position that we are in is a lot of work, and we're not always going to agree on things, but ultimately thinking about students and what students need to be successful in Kent School District is the key. And so regardless of who sits in these seats, I really hope that students are always going to be our focus. Regardless of what happens, I want to make sure that the focus is always on students. So I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep doing what I need to do to be supportive. I'm not going to just sit for the last 2 months, but I do want to let people know that I'm going to keep on keeping on until I am done. And so there's lots to be done. There's lots of things we could do to support our students and educators in this district. So I'm going to make that commitment to keep on working. Having said that, speaking of work, I want to be done before 8. So it is 7:46, and I'm going to adjourn our meeting